Ladies and gentlemen, happy Tuesday, and welcome to your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio World. There he is, Mick Hoffman. We got the right link today. I was thinking to myself, man, did I get the right link? And want to thank Daniel Bellis, the producer to the stars, for getting us right, and you and I can have our bi-weekly conversation. What's going on in high school activities throughout the state of Washington with our executive director, Mick. Thank you so much for making time with us today.
You bet. Great to be here, and glad Daniel could get us squared away.
We love fall sports in the state of Washington. Obviously, there's a ball. There's a game that's played with an oval-shaped ball, but there are other activities that students participate in throughout the fall, and we have volleyball, we have golf. I was up at Jefferson Park driving range yesterday. Should have been working, Mick, but I had to go see if my back could get loosened up a little bit. So hit a couple of wedges and a couple of 7-irons and felt really good, and got back to work, of course. But saw all of the kids from the Metro League teams and Seattle Arts and Sciences in their cool golf bags with their names on them and everything. Looked like PGA Tour professionals. And had a great time kind of hobnobbing. And I tell you, those thin little 16, 17, 18-year-old kids, boy, they can hit the ball a long ways. And I had some really good conversations and saw a variety of really, really cool equipment that their parents have worked hard and got for them. But there's other sports as well. Cross country. My wife was a all-state cross country runner back in Virginia. We know the importance of that. So the WIAA does not slow down in the fall. Obviously, people think of, I can't remember what sport they think of football. But, Mick, you guys have a lot of sports going on right now.
Yeah, fall's a busy time. Fall and spring. Spring's our heaviest total participant, but fall is very, very busy. Start a new school year, and a lot of sports, a lot of activities.
Tell us a little bit about the biggest opportunities and challenges facing some of the fall sports right now. Let's not talk about football. We'll come to that in a second. But tell us about some of the fall sports. What are people do to encourage? Because this is the first time that a lot, especially in the 9th grade, unless you've come up through a program, this is the first time a lot of kids have thought about participating in a sport or activity.
Yeah, and there's a lot of no-cut sports that they can get out there and play. Cross country being a perfect example. A lot of tennis teams will keep everybody. Girls sports, a lot of schools will provide a 4th team for soccer, or 3rd team for soccer, 4th team for volleyball. So there's a lot of opportunity for students to get involved. I think with that, the greatest challenge is funding it and finding qualified coaches that, adults that are willing to come in, because you're not going to make a living coaching high school sports by itself. So, I think that's probably our schools. We've got a lot of schools, both public, private, facing some pretty significant financial challenges. And trying to add and maintain programs is probably the greatest challenge that we're seeing for our schools right now.
You know something, Mick, you bring us something interesting, and in a certain point of your career, when you're looking to make a little bit of money, I remember in my 20s and 30s, a little bit of money could have been the second part of the rent payment. A little bit of money could have paid for my cable bill. But obviously, you grow on in life, and you grow on in your career. And it sure is good to be at a point. My wife and I were selling the 50-50 raffle tickets at the Seattle Mariners game on Sunday night. And I tell you something, Mick, when one of those kids, one of those Highline Pirates comes up to me, one of those former Franklin Quakers come up to me, as they did Sunday night, and they talk about what they're doing now, talk about where they're at in their career, talk about how much fun we had, and kind of hobnobbing about some of the guys that were at that period of time. No amount of money can ever replace that experience.
Yeah, it really is kind of what motivates you, right? That's what coaching really gives you opportunity. Some people do it because they want rings and titles and records and be nominated to Hall of Fames. And Fortunately, a lot of people, that's not their only goal. Their goal is really to help young people, and there's not a better way to do it. I mean, we got something they love, that's sports. You saw it in, think about that when I was at that game Sunday night, and, for almost 48,000 people chanting together. And I'm looking around that stadium thinking about all the stuff we deal with in this work, of people mad about everything from schools having to deal with fines to transgender athletes to transfer rules to this and that. Everybody's mad all the time and fighting. And yet at a sporting event, we get 48,000 people chanting Julio, Julio together, and they don't care about anybody's politics. And so I think that truly is the magic of sports, is it brings communities together. And, we're just fighting to make sure it doesn't, at the same time, the agendas don't separate our communities. So
Have you noticed, or has the WIAA noticed a shift in participation in some of the particular sports? Obviously, volleyball, cross country, soccer, they attract certain types of athletes and athletes who have participated in some of those sports for a while. They want to get away from the select stuff, and they want to participate with people that they've grown up with and they're going to school with, and represent their school. And in many communities throughout the state of Washington, that's still very, very important. Certainly, even here in Seattle, we learned recently that's very important, and we'll touch on that in a moment. But do you notice that, has there been a shift in participation or interest in the sports? Are more kids now coming up through a feeder program system or a select program system, and they're making the decision that they're gonna curtail that to play high school volleyball? I didn't realize there was many. Mick, I had no idea until Clemente started running track and field that there was this many track and field and cross country and throwing and sprinting coaches. I couldn't believe it. And then obviously soccer's one where kids are participation. Tell us about how that's all shaking out in some of the sports that we don't hear about as much.
Yeah, participation's at an all-time high in our country coming back from COVID. And so football is recovered to the point, their numbers are really dropping, dealing with CTE and brain injury information in the past. And with the changes that have been made, it's actually at an all-time high. And girls wrestling in our state is absolutely exploding. It's really exciting to see these young ladies getting out there, getting after it. So in general, we're up across the board. We're starting to get more officials out. And so, more and more people are coming back. And I don't know if it's, with the officials, a lot of times it's economy. So some jobs start slowing down, not as much overtime. I got a buddy who works at the port, like they're not working extra shifts. So, well, maybe I'll go do some refereeing. They like sports. So, there's, I don't know exactly what it is other than people love sports, and we're not seeing any sports in total go down. It's really more situational, depending on what's going on in a community or a school.
He is Mick Hoffman. He is the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. And I'm Juan Cotto. I am a personality, to say the least, on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. I am sitting here in the beautiful Leschi neighborhood of Seattle. I had a number of meetings today, but no one is busier than Mick Hoffman, who goes throughout the state of Washington to check in with coaches. He checks in with the administrators. He catches up with the athletic directors. I'm sure you speak to PTAs and the parents groups about the importance of participation in athletics in the state of Washington and the impact that it has on children's lives. And once again, Mick, like I said, on Sunday night, I realized that my 16, 17, 18 years of coaching in the state of Washington at Highline High School, Franklin, Nathan Hale, it is all for naught. You know it when you're doing it and you're thinking it, and you're so caught up in winning a game or helping an athlete improve. But when you see them 15, 20 years down the road, wow, what an impact that you have. How does the WIAA support schools with resource disparities, say the urban schools, and you touched on it a little bit earlier, versus some of the obviously we have private schools, we have some public schools that are at a in a little bit more wealthy community. How do we balance all of these resource disparities to make sure that there is a robust fall sports schedule.
Yeah, I mean, it's, that's a challenge trying to find equitable games. But in the last decade, the association has really provided a lot of flexibility to our schools. So, in our league, in our state, schools get to decide who's in their league. So they get to decide, they get to make their own schedule. We do not do any centralized scheduling. Essentially, the way we're set up is we say, okay, here's the state tournament. Here's where it's going to start. Here's how many allocations you get to your region of the state. Tell us who's coming to play. And our schools get it sorted out. We will get out and help negotiate and mediate some of those discussions. So things that are in place functionally, the classification system takes socioeconomics in there. And it's not that schools that have high poverty demographics or that can't compete, because we see a lot of really, really successful schools in communities that don't have a high economic status. But with the amount of transition that happens in those kind of communities where families are, fighting to survive and feed themselves and find jobs and housing, it's tougher to build a program. You talked about feeder programs earlier. It's tough for a kid to play through a feeder program if he lives in 9 or 10 homes over the course of his high school career. So there is some factoring for that's in there that allows teams to play. Schools can choose to play lower classifications against smaller schools and forego postseason if they don't automatically qualify or win an appeal. So there's a lot of flexibility in the system. Our goal is, we run state tournaments. That's our thing. Mm-hmm. But our goal is that the kids who get to play every single day get a great experience in those games that are not in running clock situation. So that's what we're working towards. We got a lot of work to do. I don't think anybody's solved it across the country, but the work in Washington over the last 10 years, there's some ADs and others who've done some really good work on that.
What are the major pressures of athletic directors and district directors, and obviously you've introduced us to so many of your staff in the WIAA offices. Mick, is there a pressure to maintain a sense of competitive balance and to make sure that we're having and I'm specifically talking about the fall sports outside of the sport of football. When I think about volleyball, when I think about golf, for example, and as much as I think you know me from the way I walk and I'm rubbing my back all the time. I spend way too much time hitting golf balls, and it was just it was so cool to see the kids up there and interact with their coaches. And you were a basketball coach, I am a football coach, and those sports are so interesting in terms of the perception of coaching. But to sit there for a few minutes and watch golf coaches connect with those kids, how do athletic directors and the WIA staff continue to make sure that they build a positive and productive situation for the kids who are participating in those sports?
Yeah, a lot of it depends on how much the school districts prioritized it. Mm-hmm. In some school districts, they have full-time athletic directors in the building. That person is an athletic director. They're not teaching 5-6 classes. They're not an assistant principal. There's organizing and cultivating culture for athletics for kids and coaches. They may have some other duties. Some school districts, Seattle schools, my understanding is they're full-time teachers and they get a few $1,000s, mm-hmm. and they're not even athletic directors. Their title is activities coordinator or activities mm-hmm. director. And so, they just don't have the time to go out there and take care of their coaches and kids like some other places do. So it really is dependent on school districts. For those that have the time, there's not a better intervention program in a school than their athletic and activities program. Gets kids to want to come to school, so you're dealing with tardy truancies, makes them want to play, so they're going to stay out of trouble. They want to get grades so they can stay eligible and play. All the things that it does on top of teaching soft skills that, sadly in our society, we've seen a huge gap in that. We've gone backwards. And so the potential is incredible. It really depends on how the school district prioritizes it.
And when I was coaching at Highline one year, and I think I told you the story at the end of the 2010 football banquet, a very pregnant Sarah Cotto told me before we were going in there that this was it. We were done coaching sports, and that was it. And I had some things that I needed to take care of at home. And we got to the banquet for the football team at Highline High School. And Mrs. Smiley and her son Jamar, and who's doing very well right now. He's doing some really cool things here in the city of Seattle area as a spoken word artist and some different things. And the younger son, whose name's escaping, he was in the football program. And Mrs. Smiley came to Sarah and said after the program, it was like, and Sarah said it was like God was speaking through her. Thank you so much for letting your husband do this. She goes, your husband is my son's father. He's developed that relationship with them, and it's so important that he's out there, and he has the things that he's taught them, the discipline that he's put in them, the ability that when he says go to class, they do. And my wife came to me and said, "I know you set that up. I know you made her do that, but we have to come back next year." And it really speaks to the impact that the coaches tell us about just, for fall sports. So many kids are looking to find themselves, and they're now coming from a middle school to a big school situation. And that really is, if it's in a urban, rural, or a suburban situation, they've got a much bigger student body to deal with for a lot of them. A lot of them, their personalities haven't developed, and this can be a major transition for them. And let's talk a little bit about the impact that sports can have in that transition.
Yeah, think about this from a financial situation. Every student FTE, I don't know what the exact number is, but is worth about $10,000 in funding to the school district. So how many students does a coach have to keep connected to the school to pay for their time, or an athletic director? You're talking one or less for a coach and 10 or so for an athletic director. So first of all, not being able to afford it seems like a really weak argument. Right? I understand the budgets are tight and all that, but if you really step back and you look at value for it, because a coach will spend over the course of a season, say, at least 90 days, at least 2 hours with every one of those students. That's more contact time than a teacher has with their student in class, right? So all the things we expect teachers to do of making those connections and changing kids' lives while they're learning physics. And if you're Mick Hoffman, you're hiding in physics class because you don't want to be called on. So I don't want my teacher to know my name, right? But right. And so we're trying to do all those things with teachers, and they have 150, 160, 170 students a year, and they might lose half their classes if they only teach semester classes, and start to redo that relationship. And that coach has more contact time every year, and potentially for 4+ years if they've met that kid prior to high school. So you think about the potential impact around, you're dealing in emotional situations, you're on bus rides, you're in informal settings, formal settings. We can't pay our coaches and ADs enough to set up strong programs that keep kids connected to their education. And so, I've really taken on that stance this year, is one, talking to legislators about, hey, extended day education base should be part of basic ed funding. Like, figure out how to keep it as non-discretionary funds and get it tied directly to that purpose, because the things that kids learn from it, the data shows the results of this nationally, and the time that a coach gets with a student. So, and it's the fair thing to do. So anyway, that's one I got. You can tell I got some passion around that. The potential of our coaches and ADs, and then the lack of resourcing that for the greatest intervention program in a school is really frustrating.
He is Mick Hoffman. He is the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association, and he travels all over the state, and we've seen him everywhere. supporting the participants, our children who participate in athletics and activities, our teachers, our athletic directors, our parents. And boy, it is a job that I guess on the outside of it looks so glamorous, but on the inside of it, it is an awful lot of work. He's got a wonderful staff out there that supports him in Renton, Washington. And they basically, in essence, make up the governing body for athletics in the state of Washington. He meets with us here on WIAA Primetime every Tuesday at 3 o'clock, or every other Tuesday. We do a good job of promoting it. And certainly you can catch up with other episodes on our other channels that we have for Rainier Avenue Radio. Mick, fall sports, and once again, outside of football, football we know has a 5-man reffing crew. And obviously, if you are interested, you should contact WIAA headquarters, because we are always looking for referees, the Washington Officials Association. I'm going to set that aside for a little bit. But let's talk about what it takes to put on a cross-country meet. Let's talk about what it takes to put on a volleyball game. Let's talk about what it takes to put on a golf tournament. I don't even know how you would do a golf tournament, but if we can go back 40 years, I would have been playing golf probably in the fall. I don't know. I'm sure Ed Crafton would talk to me out to come and play in some football. But what does it take, and what type of participation do we need from administrators and athletic directors and parents and volunteers to make sure that those sports get the necessary officiating that they need?
Yeah, I mean, cross country, I mean, a lot of times we're still having to do some hand timing. Technology is getting more affordable and available, but you need people out there. I mean, you run 3.1 miles out there in the community park or what have you. So you need people making sure people aren't cutting corners and don't get lost out on the track, and helping get them organized at the start and finish. And cross country is tough, and cross country coaches basically do that on their own. As an AD, when you got everything else going on, it's, you're really relying on your cross country coach to kind of help with setting all that up, the course and what have you. The volleyball, I mean, that's a full day in the gym. And what are you doing with your kids? And you start talking about the extra pressures on coaches and ADs, all the supervision that comes with that, making sure your girls are someplace safe when you're on the road, make sure they're getting fed, that they're not eating out vending machines, make sure that people aren't accessing them while they're on an off-campus facility. So there's a lot of things that go on far beyond getting the officials in the room and the balls pumped up and out on the court. Make sure the net's tight. And as an AD, you're looking at all the safety features around that. And so make sure you got scorekeepers. And back in the day when I was teaching, we were assigned X amount of duties. And today's world, with the demands on teachers, that's no longer a requirement. And so now you're having to go out and either hire or find volunteers to come work events. And so there's a lot to organizing that, on top of dealing with all the fallout and all the unseen challenges of organizing any type of event, especially one with emotion.
Mick, how does the athletic director and how do the districts coordinate? Because people forget there are JV games, there are freshman games, especially in the fall, and the freshman games are a lot of those are make it or break it for these kids. I mean, this may be the first step to them playing for 4 years. If the experience is good, if the experience is difficult, this may be the last time they play a particular sport in their life, and understanding the range of skills all the way in between. How do we make sure that the kids are having a good time, and that they're once again able to come in and really participate and get all of these fields? And when I was coaching at Highline and also at Franklin, getting all of the buses scheduled. I remember, at O'Day, I know Monty Kohler and Crotty and those guys, they all drive the buses. But in the public schools, you have to coordinate it with the timing of the shifts going out and taking kids home to get to your games. How does that all kind of coordinate itself out?
Yeah, I mean, again, you're talking about the role of an athletic director, an administrator, and a coach. And on top of it, you get back from those games at 10 o'clock, win, lose, or whatever you dealt with. You need to make sure students get picked up and get home safe. And so I mean, it doesn't end. And I guess, those younger games can be the most problematic as far as supervision, because one, you have students who maybe haven't been indoctrinated in your culture, expectations of behavior. They maybe not played in real organized or structured or school-based sports. Their parents are the same way. They have high expectations, and they see them failing. Could potentially be somebody else's fault. And you're usually at auxiliary sites. So a lot of those games are played off-site or an auxiliary gym. So you're trying to supervise parents and students who you haven't been able to spend a lot of time and build a relationship with and teach expectations. And so, I mean, it's a lot of work. And then the officials are there, and if they're being abused verbally, what have you, they could leave, walk out, not want to come back. And then on top of it, you need to make sure you got the announcer ready and pronounce the names correctly, to be respectful of everybody. And you talk to ADs. An AD checklist is about 40 deep minimum especially on a game day. And in the fall, Monday night, you probably have your JV football game. Tuesday night, you got soccer and volleyball going. Wednesday night, hopefully you got a little reprieve, but typically they're starting to schedule on those now, just to accommodate shortage in officials. Thursday, you got varsity volleyball, most likely, maybe a varsity football game, at least a freshman football game, and a cross country meet possibly. And soccer's in there. And then Friday, you're doing your football game at your stadium. And so you're responsible for all that. And guess what? That all happens from 3 o'clock to 11 o'clock. Right. And you were probably at work at 7 a.m. or earlier doing your day job until 3 o'clock. And the winter, it only gets busier. And so you have games every night with that. And then you get to the spring. So, that's a tough job. It's a tough job. You gotta love what you do to do it.
Speaking of tough jobs, we will come back and we will have conversations about this. I just wanted to point out, Mick, you talked about you being in the physics class. Clemente Cotto brought home a report card, and he had an A in physics, and I believe he struggled in Spanish. And my wife said, "Are you going to talk to him about the Spanish grade?" I said, "Sarah, I'm going to take you about the dinner for the physics grade. Are you kidding me?" It definitely skips a generation. Hey, it doesn't skip a generation here on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. We will be back talking to Mick Hoffman in about 3 minutes.
Here with the Rainier Avenue Radio traffic update. You can listen to us in your car 24/7 anytime by downloading the free TuneIn app. Once you do, search Rainier Avenue Radio. And remember, do not curse out your fellow drivers. This has been your Rainier Avenue Radio traffic update. If you or a family member are 55 or over and need nursing home level care, but want to keep living where you are, check out Providence Elder Place PACE. This program offers healthcare, housing, transportation, and recreational activities. There are no copays or deductibles, and it's covered through Medicare and Medicaid. Providence Elder Place PACE works to keep you healthy and in your home. Call 206-320-5325 or visit providence.org Elder Place. Providence.org Elder Place.
Women are not an homogenous group.
We face discrimination differently depending on factors such as ethnicity, age, socioeconomic status, and more.
Rainier Avenue Radio is proud to amplify women's voices.
They are the experts of their own lives, initiating conversations within their community about challenges they face, the solutions they're working on, and the opportunities they see.
Please join us this Sunday from 2 to 5 for Women's Voices on Air. We know our challenges. We are the experts of our lives.
We are master multitaskers, prioritizing our family, friends, and our faith above our own needs.
Our needs and voices are too often overlooked.
Please join us this Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. for Women's Voices on Air.
We tell our stories in our own way.
Turn up your radio wherever you at. We about to bring it. Street Beat with Tony B.
Tony B will give you a chance to tackle local and international issues that affect your community. Street Beat. Street Beat.
Tony. Love food? Here's some storage tips to keep it fresh longer. Store cut fruits and vegetables in the fridge. Place in reusable containers. Keep bread in the freezer for longer storage. 40% of food in the U.S. goes uneaten. Save money, save food, save the planet. Visit Seattle Public Utilities for more tips.
Rainier Avenue Radio, your community radio station will provide you with more information. Rainier Avenue Radio.
We are back on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Mick Hoffman, the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association, Juan Cotto, the host, the legendary and great Daniel Bellis, the producer to the stars. We appreciate Daniel so much. And one of the things that we do on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, I call it politicking. We do a lot of politicking here, and we are coming up on a dramatic. I cannot remember city council races, mayor's races, city attorney's races in the city of Seattle being this hot. This is like someone turned on a skillet and you lick your finger a little bit and touch it and the steam comes flying off. These races are getting hot. And I remember the great Gene Lux out in Renton, and he ran for so many different things. I think Gene was a state legislator, and we were going for a couple of positions back in the mid 1980s. And he said, "I just can't wait till all the bumper cars start smashing into each other at one of the debate rallies." And boy, I tell you, we have seen this since we started it on Rainier Avenue Radio. We had a lot of our debates early on, and Tony B is so eloquent. He calls it the community election connection. I'm just a private school kid, and I call it politicking, and you can take that from my English lessons. But there are plenty of ways that you can research the candidates. There are ways you can listen to these debates and public forums that we've done to hear about these candidates who are running. And there's a variety of different shows, including Juan on Rainier, and I know that Cliff Cawthorn has his show back on where you can learn about these candidates and hear a variety of different ideas about what's going on during this campaign season. But as we always say on our shows, go out and register to vote, to participate in the process, please. And that's your number one goal as a citizen, is to make sure that you are registered to vote, get information from Rainier Avenue Radio and other sources, and then go put the ballot into the election box. Mick, as a part of the Community Election Connection, we had a state legislator in yesterday, a very interesting gentleman, and had the opportunity to speak with him on Juan on Rainier, and which will be heard later. But as we were going up, we were talking about sports, and he is from a rural community out on the coast, and he of course was talking about the transgender issue, and I said I have a show with Mick Hoffman, and his eyes rolled a little bit, and I thought to myself, that Mick has one hell of a job, my brother, and I'm going to spare you, Mick Hoffman. We're not going to go into that. We're not going to go into that side of it, and I'm sure that we will. And please, for those that watch, I'm not demeaning that particular issue. It is one that we have to sit down and we have to prepare for, because it is such one that brings up such a great emotion that Mick and I want to make sure that we know what the heck we're talking about. So I like to do that. But one which we have prepared for, and again, Mick, we saw it here in the Central Seattle neighborhoods. And as you know, I mean, I've coached. I played with a lot of guys now who are second and third generation. They are now grandparents, some of them. They are certainly former parents of student athletes. Some of them went to my mother's alma mater, Garfield. I was the head football coach at Franklin and at Highline, as you know. I went to school at O'Day High School, and people are like, geez, Juan, you do such an effective job of speaking about this. And yeah, because I've been a part of it on many different levels. and of course we're gonna touch bases on and Mick and Mike Colbreeze, your predecessor. You guys have always been so open to talking about this, and I'm open to bring it up because I'll bring it up as far as we can bring it up. And I know Mick has some sensitive things because sensitive areas that he's involved in terms of some of the litigation in regards to this right now currently going on. But the bottom line issue is that my phone blew up with a number of texts last week as Brandon Roy, who was the head coach of Garfield, he made the decision, I believe, to step down, and we can read into whatever that was. There was a letter that came from the principal's office at Garfield about he and the girls' basketball coach, I believe Coach Smiley. We had Coach Corey Sampson, who participated in the game against O'Day on a Thursday night, and then on, I believe it was the following Monday or Tuesday, he stepped down after 11 years at Rainier Beach. And I, of course, have been on the staff with Coach Sampson. I had a very, very brief text exchange with him in all due transparency. But my friends, Mick Hoffman, Coach Hoffman, but I want to say Executive Director Hoffman, I have some friends who they understand the precarious situation that I'm in because I have a kid, a 17-year-old senior at the private school, and there's a lot of comments that get directed at my alma mater. I understand that, and trust me, Mick, there's a lot of comments right now from some parents inside my alma mater, and I'm brave enough to stand up and say it, and I certainly understand it after Friday night's game, and there was a couple of new players on the field that came from other programs, and they looked like NFL linebackers. And there's some players who have been in that program for 4 years who are not playing as much anymore. And parents tend to come and talk to me about that, and understandably so. This is a very, very sensitive matter, and I know that there's a lot of people in the community, a lot of the guys that I played against, a lot of guys that I went at the high school with, and they all have some very, very interesting things and interesting statements to say about it. Mick, there tends to be three sports: girls basketball, boys basketball, and football. That I can only imagine the challenge that you have with everyone who probably comments on all of these things, and the reason why those three coaches ended up stepping down. And then, of course, you have and what we deal with, and you and I are media figures and public figures. One media institution brought up the race card and said that these were three black coaches that were relieved of their duties, or however it was described. I know that you are not able to go into some of this because of the litigation, and we're going to respect that as a journalist and also as people who view this and watch this. But I would love to see how we can have a conversation around this. That when coaches step down at this particular time of the year, when you have Corey Sampson stepping down in 2 games into it, when you have coaches like Brandon Roy who are gearing up to coach in the fall and they are stepping down, what does that say from the school districts, and what does that say to parents who are supporting these coaches, as we found out there are a lot of them are?
Yeah, very good question. I think it's a very fair question, especially considering the timing. For us, a lot of people assume we're directly involved in all those decisions. A lot of times we're finding out the same time as the public. And so, the real answers need to come from employers. And that's not a political answer. That's not a legal answer. So we don't know. We get complaints about coaches all the time around their style of coaching and that's an employer issue. And that is a school district and school and them. In the Garfield situation, 2 really successful coaches. We got forwarded the letter and got asked questions about it. And so we got to read it first. We don't know. We have no answers. People want to think we're in there. I would say that, there's a lot of things going on in Seattle right now, and only public schools can kind of answer what's going on with coaches. Coach Sampson, I've never met the man. I've heard nothing but great things about him. Anybody who coaches anywhere for over a decade, number one, and keeps a program moving forward and competitive when talent is there and respectable when it's not. I have a ton of respect for that. And so I honestly, I don't know. I don't have answers. We don't know. What I can say is that I feel bad for the kids who are there, not knowing the situation. But, we talk about the role of coaches and those relationships that are met. And as long as nothing was going on that was harmful for students, once again, the students are in the middle of it, and that's too bad. Honestly, we're kind of waiting to find out ourselves.
Mick, and it's one of the things, and people ask me, geez, Juan, you can speak about it so candidly. Yeah, I can speak about it candidly. I was at Highline High School for 5 years. I don't know how I survived Highline High School for 5 years, and not in regards to the student body, but in terms of the students and the administration, Mary Sagal and her staff, Terry McMahon, the folks that I worked with over there. It was a great experience for 5 years, but it was a lot of it. Mick, as you know, I have a Catholic school, maybe a half mile up the street, and let me take a step back here. One of the things I took offense to in some of the comments that I read by folks, and like you said, you and I both read the letters. We're reading the letter. I think a lot of people jump to conclusions, but when you are calling Brandon Roy and you're calling Corey Sampson cheaters, they're cheating. And I'm sitting here like, are you stinking kidding me? Because I've been there. I've been there both sides of it. I've coached in a private school. Got my kid at a private school. But when I was at Highline, you're looking at it. I'm fighting and struggling to get 35 to 40 kids out. And we have to do so much to keep those 40 kids in the program, including raising additional money and McKinney-Vento and paying for fines and fees and making sure that their books are paid for, making sure that their fines are paid for so they can come out. And if somehow the district or our administration found that I gave them a couple of bucks to pay for their book fines, the books were the fine money was returned to them. Coach Cotto can't pay for your book fines. And it was so frustrating. Meanwhile, we have kids coming from this giant radius at the Catholic school up the street, and there was some frustration there. There certainly was some frustration. Now, here's the thing. I understood the rules of the district. So I understood what, Mary Sagal, Jerry Bamberg, they made it very clear what the rules were. So I knew what the rules were, and I had to be very careful. Even I was in the Albertsons talking to a potential parent about, hey, come and play some football. That could be construed as recruiting. So I would usually go get my Gatorade and my Twinkies and just go to my car and keep my mouth shut. But there are people coming from larger radiuses, and I guess the private schools, there is a 50-mile radius. And the question becomes, once again, it is so disconcerting to hear that some people are cheating, and the rules don't appear to be the same. Is that a fair assessment, or is that a fair thing that we can discuss?
I would say to some degree, and it definitely, I could understand the appearance of that, right? And so going back to the first part of this question around Seattle schools, I think what we're seeing in Seattle schools is a real focus on educating people on the rules and to be able to resource the system. We talked about the AD structure, right? And then so if your AD is responsible for making coaches aware of the rules, coaches following the rules, reporting to each other, that whole accountability, that is something that I think we'll continue to see evolve in Seattle, which will help everybody at the end of the day. Going to the public-private, there's no doubt there's that. But, a couple things people don't factor in is, first of all, a student going from 8th grade to 9th grade can pick their school, public or private. So that 50-mile radius is open to public schools as well for those kids coming in as 8th graders. Now, they can't follow a coach. They can't be recruited there. Those things can be a challenge to prove, but they are provable, right? I mean, social media and other things, there's a lot of stuff out there on that. That's number one, is that, again, that's open. And now with the transfer rule, with the transfer window, that was one of the things that transfer committee supported, was once your school year ends in that window of transfer in the summer one time, you can move. There's actually some rules that don't allow a private school student to go from private to private, where you go public to public. And so, there are some rules in there that don't make it completely one-sided. The other point I would make, and I'll take your next question then, is that we've kept data. Mike started this well before I got here. We've maintained it on championships, public-private. So traditionally, private schools are like 17% of our population. Got up to 20 with COVID, with some of the small kind of pop-up independent schools. On average, private schools win 17 to 20% of the state championships. So it's proportional. Now, there are certain grade level or certain classifications in certain sports that it's skewed one way or another. At the 3A, 4A level, O'Dea doesn't win. They win, but they don't win a lot of state championships, right? Gonzaga Prep doesn't win a lot of state championships. It's predominantly public schools still winning at that 3A, 4A level in most sports. You go to Bs and 1As, especially in soccer and some basketball, the privates have a higher percent of championships. So, that being said, those rules we're talking about, the membership makes that. And if 80%, 83% of the schools are public and they think that this is an unfair advantage for private schools, 5 of them can propose a rule, 60% of that rep assembly, who they choose to represent them, just like city council, can change those rules on any year. And so we hear about a lot, and from the outside, when you're not intimate with the knowledge, right, the perception, you know your experience at Highline, yeah, that school probably had a huge impact on you, but it didn't impact that 2A down the road, right, at least as much. And so again, we deal in across the board, but people's reality is their own situation. And so, yes, it definitely can be skewed for individual communities.
It's so interesting, Mick, because one of my favorite comments in sports, my favorite sports quotes is by Richard Petty. And yes, auto racing is a sport, but they asked Richard Petty, when did they start racing cars? And he said, the day they invented the second car.
Yeah.
And I love that. And people go, well, when is recruiting in high school? When did recruiting in high school become such a problem? I said when the first team lost to the second game, the second team, that's when it started. I said next week we're going to play again and we're going to get some kids out, and it's a very, very interesting thing. The injection of race into the conversation, and let me step back for a second, Mick, okay? And before I got down this pathway. In regards to the comment that you made about the state championships, to me there are 3 sports. I have a friend of mine who's like a metronome. Every time one of these situations happens, he starts comparing baseball. I've been in this community, 50 years. I don't remember any scandals that have hit the front page of the Seattle Times that have been because of recruiting in baseball or track and field. Or I don't remember about Freddie Couples being recruited to O'Dea to play golf. I don't think that some of these sports, resonate with the public and also resonate with coaches. And maybe they are. Maybe I'm just missing it. That they are going out and recruiting players. It seems that there are 3 sports. Once again, football, basketball, boys basketball, and girls basketball that have become is such an interesting thing in regards to how we are, establishing rules for them and who gets to participate. The here in the city of Seattle, and once again, and I've been very vocal about this as a former coach and now as a, Mick, they call me an elder now. at this since they've been calling me that for about a decade. I'm like, I'm not quite an elder yet. I don't feel like an elder, but yet now I am an elder in this community. And as I'm speaking about these, it seems like Black and Latino kids, and also now Samoan kids, they are the ones that are being impacted. Somehow they are ending up at different schools. Somehow they are going to 3 and 4 schools in 4 years. Some of them are, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, and then obviously, you have parents on both sides of it. They're finding places for their kids, I guess, to play. And there are some parents who, when I was on a coaching staff at Nathan Hale, also in dealing with some of the parent situations, as a parent, they're like, geez, our kid was gonna be the starting linebacker, and now he's, third string. I guess, in terms of the conversation, what is is that a district issue? Is that a state issue? Is that something that we need to take a look at? There are currently some school administrators in the city of Seattle who are on probations. They had to pay fines. And it seems to me that, this is such a touchy situation, yet it tends to flare up every decade or so.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you read about the origin of the WIAA, 1905, is because adults were jumping into basketball games and they said, hey, it's unfair because people are looking for, so they're essentially recruiting adults in town to come play in high school games. And I think your other point about when a new student comes in, especially if they don't come in under the rules, they replace somebody, whether it's a new student moving in with a family or because of McKinney-Vento or whatever the reason is, somebody gets displaced because you don't add a new spot on any team. You don't add a weight class in wrestling. So that's where the emotion, the pain, that's the intent of the rule is to, not displace kids for people who the membership hasn't said should be allowed to move. As far as the question around race, I think it's a very good question. And that is actually something that we're looking at right now. We are dealing with some very high profile cases in the urban setting that is predominantly with not all of the adults, but some of the adults would identify as people of color, and definitely a lot of their student athletes in those sports, in those schools. I would say that we do have a few baseball programs that have come under suspicion. We have not had anything sent to us to be acted on, but we are starting to see that. And in the last 6 months, we have received, quite a few more self-reports of people, self-reporting issues, not necessarily around recruiting. So I think it's a fair question. And we actually, one of the groups we've talked about historically is our BIPOC AD group. And it's really important. That group has stayed very active. AJ Brooks, who's a Seattle guy, he's an O'Day parent. He kind of got help get that thing started for us. And now we've got some distributed leadership through the AD ranks with that. And those are the kind of questions that we're diving into with our working AD. So the people who understand the rules, they understand the nuances of it, the vulnerabilities and the areas of opportunity to make it better, and to find out why is that? Like, is it because these are just really, really talented coaches and kids and programs that we read about a lot? Or is it for other reasons? And because we need to make sure that as we're doing our work, that it's fair for everybody.
And thank you for that, because I mean that really is it. And also Mick, and we are speaking to Mick Hoffman. He is the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio .world, WIAA Primetime. The parents. I talked to Clemente, and we went up and watched a friend of his play up at Kamiak High School, I believe it was, and he was like, "Geez, I could play here. Here I am, the sixth string running back at O'Day," and he definitely he saw that game against Lake Stevens, like, "Geez, I could be a starting running back here." And I told him, something that isn't an option for you. we're not going to move around so you can go play sports. I know parents have. I know a young man, Eli Gebby, who started with us at O'Day. He's having a tremendous opportunity at Ballard High School right now, and has got a college scholarship offer from Pacific Lutheran. He's played so well over there, but he and his family made the decision to change schools. How much of a bill of goods are certain parents being sold that this is a chance for your kid to play in college? I mean, that's a thing that really bugs me. Knowing having coached it for 18 years, it's still, no matter how good you are, it's still less than 1% of the kids are going to end up playing at the college level.
Yeah, I mean, like 1 point, some get some type of scholarship, and maybe 5% find a place. You know, you can pay your way and get on a lot of teams in Division III and NAIA. But yeah, I mean, again, people make a living off doing it. I make a living doing this, but they take that love for a parent's most precious commodity, their child, and they promise them and they tell them things that every parent wants to hear. And then they take every single discretionary dollar they can and then blame someone else when it doesn't work out. And the reality is, 95+% aren't playing somewhere else. And yeah, I mean, that's why it's like that experience with your teammates at the high school level. And that's why I really was happy our transfer amendment passed, because students may think something as a ninth grader and realize something as a sophomore, junior. And let's not take away the entire opportunity when they do that, while trying to keep that equity and not bumping a kid just because. So, yeah, it's tough. I feel bad for parents. We're actually talking internally about creating like a parent type education program and try to get people to provide resources that we could have on our website for parents to check in and as a way to help them help their students, because they do it out of love. They're doing it for the right reasons. They love their kid and they want their kid to have the best of everything. And unfortunately, sometimes those decisions lead to really bad situations for students.
Mick, we have 1 minute, Daniel. I'm going to take just one minute. And I have to admit, Mick, I'm a gimbal on this. I mean, I represent too many things. I'm an alum of a Catholic school, a very prominent Catholic school. I'm a parent there. I've coached in the public schools for 16, 17 years. I was head coach at 2 schools that had kids who certainly lived in our communities that were going different places to play sports. So I have a variety of different feelings and emotions about this topic. I just want to ask you, for having said that, because I don't know what the answer is. What is equity, and what is the hope that the WIAA and our districts can produce on these types of situations?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would hope that a student who works hard would always have a place on a team, and that every single night their team, or they go out as an individual competitor, they at least have a chance for a positive experience. And that's really Pollyanna, but that's what high school sports is about. It's like just having a chance. You might play 1 minute, you might just get to be a part of a great team and not actually get to participate in the contest, but the experience should be positive. So,
Mick, once again, I cannot thank you enough for being forthright. I can't thank you enough for withstanding this. This is definitely, I'm sure that your phones lit up last week, and we're talking about a very, very popular figure here in the city of Seattle, and Brandon Roy. And I know that parents, and I heard from the Garfield faithful, I heard from the St. Joe's faithful. A lot of people were surprised when they read about it. Like you said, you and I both had to read it and try to come to a conclusion on this. But thank you so much for taking the time to speak about it with us on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
You bet. I just appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate the candor and the conversation. And hopefully, if anybody actually listens to us, gives them a little better idea how it really works. A lot of people have opinions, but we want people to know how it really works.
For Daniel Bellis, thank you so much. And we will catch you next time on WIAA Primetime on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world.